What's up, everybody? This is Greg with Advantage One Brokers, and this is the ADV1 podcast. This is the podcast we come to you each and every weekday with relevant topics and trainings, and we bring on guest speakers and guest hosts. Today, we have our leadership huddle with Mr. Tyler Mitch Mitchell of Fifth Dimension Potential. How are you doing, brother?
Dude, that intro,
Man,
I've seen it 196 times. And it gets better every time I keep seeing it.
What's going on, man?
Thank you. You're a national treasure. Dude, life is good, bro. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, man.
Today.
It's been this has been good. How do you like my intro, man? I'm just honing it in. It's getting better and better.
I'm sitting here in awe. Like, that was not only like really energetic. Like, I was like, "Oh, wake up, Mitch." That was my shot. I don't even need I don't need to be caffeinated. I just got fed off of you. That was nice.
Yeah.
But no, dude, it's good. You get better every time. I like it.
I'm trying to hone my craft, man. Just do what I love.
I'm gonna step up my game. I'm like just frumpy and boring over here. You got all those pieces of flair behind you. I don't even have my obligatory pieces of flair.
I know, right? You need to get a better curtain or something back there.
They're in the mail. I got like my mental health awareness one, the Fight the Stigma. It's green, right?
Mm-hmm.
American flag, green stripe. You'll appreciate that one, right? We like that one. Red fits there. I got my alma mater, University of Utah. Boop, boop. I got Old Glory coming. Old Glory. I got a bunch over there, but those are folded up in special. So this one's going to be set aside just for this. So I'm going to be like what's this? Sheldon Cooper, and we're going to have fun with flags.
Yeah,
we're going to do that for a bit. We'll see how that goes. So that's where we're at. How's your shoulder saga going? Dude. Know about,
dude. I don't think I've talked to you about it. It's been like what 2 weeks since we talked or recorded.
Yeah.
So my shoulder. So the way your shoulder joint sits in your shoulder, it has the ball, and then it sits inside like a cup. So now the ball, the portion of the ball that sits in your shoulder joint, it's coated with like a smooth surface that's almost
cartilage. I think it's cartilage.
It's kind of made of cartilage, but it's very smooth. It's wet. It's water based. Okay. Now, on the inside of the shoulder of the cup of the actual inside of the joint, there's a little tiny pedestal that the ball of the joint moves. It's made of the same material. Okay. So when it's operating perfectly, it pivots off that tiny. It's like this big for the entire ball to pivot off of. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that stuff, that material that's inside your body, is it doesn't get replaced. Your body can't replicate it. So what happens is that it gets worn down over time. And then as it gets worn down, your body starts to try to make corrections, but it does it by bone growth, because your bone can grow, but that cannot. So basically so that material is really, really thin, and it's causing pressure to be put on the bone, on the joint, on the actual ball. So the ball is growing bones in places to try to manipulate the shoulder to where it gets back into the perfect spot where it doesn't get hurt. But it's throwing my shoulder joint out of, so my joint is not set properly, and it's not like it's dislocated. It's just not sitting in the joint properly because of bone growth. So
there is no proper joint anymore. It's trying to get back to a space that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, basically, it's trying to get to where it doesn't hurt. So basically, so what they're going to do is, there is some stuff that they can put in the shoulder to try to replicate it, but it's not tested very well. And then they can actually do cortisone shots on the inside of the joint, but it has to be done under surgery with an X-ray, and I have to be asleep for it. So they can actually manipulate and get the cortisone and the steroids actually in the joint, so that with the reduction of pain, it prevents my shoulder from trying to move to get away from the pain, if that makes sense. So that then I can go in for about 6 months. I have time to do therapy and restructure the muscles in there, so that the muscles are doing the brunt of the movement. So they're like, but here's the thing. Here's like, man, if your joint, looking at your joint, if you were 50 years old we would do an entire joint replacement. But you're too young. He's like, you're way too young to do a joint replacement.
Because once you get it replaced, you can only get it replaced again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, it typically is not going to last your whole life. So, yeah, that's
you need a Winter Soldier arm.
Yes. Soon, that technology will be out, and I'll just have one metal arm.
Man, I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah,
I think that's it's the labrum tear. Like it's your labrum.
It has nothing to do with the labrum tear. Like I have labrum tears and I have bicep tendon tears, but they're like those tears aren't what's causing the problem. They're like those tears are like, yeah, those tears probably hurt a little bit, but he's like, it's normal to get tears in your tendons. Those are going to heal. He's like, what's wrong right now with your shoulder and why it hurts so bad? I've had it in a sling. It's almost always in a sling. He was like, you've had it in a sling. You've got a frozen like a lock joint, and it doesn't know how to move properly. And anytime it does, it hurts. So it's pushing out, and there's bones growing to kind of put it in a position where it doesn't hurt anymore, but it's forcing your shoulder to get in the wrong spot. So, yeah. It sucks.
Oh, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Because I just moved you out of the gym, which that's like your palace of peace.
Yeah, man, it's my Mecca. So
well, you're gonna have to look eastward more, son, because you got to go find another one.
Well, so with the shoulder surgery, it's a quick. The one they're wanting to do, it's not invasive. It's not very invasive. So like he was like, we're gonna have you in physical therapy the next day to get your shoulder moving appropriately and put it in the right spot. Like they're gonna readjust your shoulder while I'm in surgery, and then make it to where I can strengthen through. And so they're like, hopefully through that 6 months that the cortisone is in, we can go ahead and get you strengthened enough to where it doesn't hurt anymore. Or if it does, it's barely. And then you can get back to your routine of like working out and stuff. It'll start slower and lower, but I can still get back to working out.
You remember your intro, how I was all pumped up after that intro?
Yeah.
That story you just gave me about your decrepit shoulder.
Did it just
Oh man. Hey, but I got good news.
What's up?
I got another pick me up, bro.
What's up?
Remember our last recording? We had fan mail.
Yeah.
We got fan mail again. That's 2 weeks in a row, son.
We got fan mail again? Fan mail! Leadership Huddle is getting bigger. We're getting fan mail. So go ahead.
From one of our mail followers.
Go ahead and read off the fan mail.
Well, I'm not going to read it verbatim because privacy kind of a deal. But I can paraphrase.
Okay.
I can paraphrase a situation, and essentially he had 2 topics that he wanted us to talk about. He gave me 2 scenarios which we can derive topics from. So the first scenario is that he's in a leadership role, but he's not part of there's the leadership of folks of the doers, and then there's the folks who are the administrative portion of this place. And so his chief complaint, I guess you could say, to me was he's like, hey Mitch, we had a managers meeting, and they were trying to solve a problem, and they were basically trying to steal from Peter a section in his business, and which was already stressed and under resourced, and move it to another under resourced and already stressed
to pay Paul.
Yeah, so they're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, but Peter ain't got no money, and he's already in debt, and so they're just trying to move debt around essentially. And so in this meeting, he said nobody spoke up until the very end. He's like, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to speak up and just say, hey, we can't do that. We don't have the resources for that. You're going to break both sections if you do that, right? And they ended up reprimanding him for it and accusing him of not being a team player. And I was like, okay, I listened to that. I empathize. I'm like, yeah, that sucks that you got reprimanded for that. I'm like, but let's unpack that for a second. I was like, was that the right time and place to swim upstream, if you will, with your bosses and basically your leadership, your supervisors in the room? Was that the time and place to do that? Or I basically asked him a question. I'm like, what could have you done better? How could you have pitch this better to get the response that you wanted, or to
Mm-hmm.
inform them of the situation better. And he he essentially came up to the solution on his own, but he admitted he kind of let emotion take over, and that's what happened when you get emotional and frustrated. You tend to say things and do things that are not really well thought out.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I was thinking we could talk about on that, since I'm such a huge fan of and culture and climate being linked by embedding mechanisms, which are like your formation documents, your cultural documents, your rules of behavior, if you will. And then they're linked on the bottom as well as feedback mechanisms. So, like how people say, hey, yeah, your culture, this says this is what we're going to do, but the climate, this is actually what's happening on the ground. And so I was like, he is on the climate side. He's in it every day. He's living it. You know what I mean? And the folks who are the visionaries and the folks with the kind of are in charge of the culture don't see that there's a chasm forming there between climate and culture. And I call it the culture climate chasm, right? And so it's where the climate is not reflective of what the culture says.
Yeah.
And so he brought that up in that meeting. So that was a feedback mechanism, but it probably wasn't the most appropriate feedback mechanism he could have used. But that also says something about the culture there. It's like, well, what feedback mechanisms exist?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think we should probably
let's dig in that, and then we'll jump into the second part.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So basically, there's a couple key factors here which you've identified. Okay. Whenever you're in an organization and you're dealing with leadership, and they're making a decision, like, here's the fact of the matter is that, you know, the people making the decision, the decision makers that are actually implementing this, they're never going to make everybody happy. It's not your everyone's ideas within the team they think certain things have to happen. Everybody has different ideas. Now, obviously, he felt very strongly about this. Okay, so because he felt like he saw something, or his ideas weren't being, recognized, or understood, or heard, and so, however he acted out or got passionate, then he did that. But there's a lot of things that you can do as an organization that you can fix this. This is a very simple fix. A is have a feedback mechanism. And by that, what do we mean by that? So just to break things down like the most simple term, that just means you have a system in place that people within your organization can tell you their thoughts and feelings without recourse, without reprimand. And you can take that information and you can implement it if it does work, or test it to see if it works. Or you can say, hey, I appreciate your feedback. I see where you're coming from. However, here is everything that I'm operating off of. And I've tried that specific thing before. Even though you don't know it, I have tried it. It didn't work. So that's why I'm not doing that. But thank you for the feedback. Okay. So A is having that feedback mechanism where people can actually come to you when they are concerned based on a decision that's made by the higher headquarters or the higher leadership, where they can come and talk, and they know that they're at the very least they're going to be heard. And so that's A. B is, and this is the way that I like to do it, is, but if I have to make a big decision, I like to get my core leaders around me and have a discussion and get everyone's input. Because usually, like, I'm very much like you, Mitch. Usually when I have a problem that I have to make a decision on, before I have that meeting, I'm usually about the 80 to 90% mark on what I want to do. But what I'm doing is I'm having that conversation with them to see if there's some kind of unknown that maybe I'm not thinking about, or maybe something that might change my decision. So we have a conversation before a decision's made. We talk it out. We all kind of come together and decide, like, this is the way forward that we're going to do. Then whenever it's announced, it's announced from the top down. So me to them to their teams on down. And it goes down the chain like that, because it's a lot more powerful when you can get, instead of just one voice, you can have 5 voices or 10 voices or so on and so forth. Like, it's just more powerful, and people are more likely to almost like jump on the bandwagon kind of thing. And also like it's easier when I have a conversation with my core leaders that if we want to have disagreements, that's fine. We can have disagreements. It's just us. So like if they do that, and that's kind of like a secondary embedded feedback mechanism for my leaders, is that when I do pull them together to have this conversation, it's not like, hey, this is what it is. This is my decision. You guys don't get to talk. It's, hey, this is the problem. What do you guys think? And I'm listening. And they may have disagreements together. And I'm like, hey, let's capitalize on this. Why do you disagree? Here's why. And like have them each, sell their sides and what they believe. But usually it's not me going over like, hey, this is what I want to do. It's just like, hey, I haven't told them what I want to do. I just tell them, here's the problem. What are your thoughts? And I listen. And at the end, I'm going to make a decision, and I will say, hey, based on this is what I think, and this is what I was coming into it. This is what I gathered from you guys, and so I did this way forward. What do you guys think? And then basically what happens by the end of this is that we've talked it out. And we can have those candid conversations. So it's not, I'm willing to bet, I don't know, because I didn't see the email and I wasn't there for the situation, but I'm willing to bet that the gentleman that wrote in, when he spoke up, it probably, like you said, probably wasn't the right time to do so. This probably when they've already made the decision and they're coming and telling the masses. And when you do that as an individual person, you create a rift between you and the leadership. And then what happens is that there's going to be people that follow you just because you're the person on the ground. And you're going to create division. It's going to be like the mom-dad game, And you don't want to do that because you isolate yourself as somebody that's just dissension. Even you may have the most pure intentions, and you really do care about the business, you still come off like you're just doing dissension and chaos and you're trying to throw everything out of whack no matter what. So having these feedback mechanisms in place are what kind of prevent that from happening so everyone can get on board in pieces and then it spreads wide. So thoughts, Mitch?
Well, what you're saying is it's not like just his fault or the leadership's fault. It's both. They both have a part of the problem.
Yes.
Leadership has the problem in that they don't create an environment where people can feel they can talk up without repercussion. Because now in the future, when he goes to speak up, he's not going to.
Exactly.
He got reprimanded. And so he's not going to talk. And other people may not talk either because they're like, oh man, look what he did. He got reprimanded for it. So I'm not going to say anything either. And so now they just shut people down. Right. And then what you just said about him, about, picking your time and your spots, was that the right? And what you said, you triaged that appropriately as far as like, did you bring it up at the point of the discussion when they were brainstorming? Or did you bring it up at the end after they have come to a decision and they're like trying to implement and you're like, but have you thought about this? It's like, no, dude. It's like, we already made the decision. We're already moving out. Now you're trying to come back. It's like, no, get on the train, man. It's like, the round is out of the chamber, as we would say, right?
Yeah.
It's going down range. And so I'm like, yeah, I could see that problem. But for feedback mechanisms, there's multiple feedback mechanisms. Like you mentioned your one, and even with how you have your leaders come together and then you have the information go down, it's like, well, what's your feedback? This is more of a question for Greg now. It's like, well, what's your feedback mechanism to ensure the information that's going down is going down? Is there something that you have that exists that they can come back up and be like, well, my leaders didn't tell me anything, or I don't know because no one told me anything. Now that's a feedback mechanism in itself, because that's the trust they have with you, that they say, hey, I'm going to come up on the horn and be like, hey, I don't know what's going on. That's informal person-to-person communication feedback that's based off of mutual trust, right?
Yeah.
But there's also formal things you can do. You can do like counseling, like performance reviews. The technique you use with that, you can get feedback that way. You can do surveys, right? Anonymous surveys of the company and just say, hey, what are everyone's thoughts? Like a climate survey, if you will. We've been surveyed to death. So there's a lot of different feedback mechanisms that exist that you can implement for these things.
So I do have other feedback mechanisms. So first off, to make sure that the information's flowing downwards, I actually had a conversation with some of the managers here at AV1 about this specifically. So when we have a manager huddle and we're putting out information, or just like basically if there's issues that agents are arising, they can bring it up to the top. This is our feedback mechanism that every day we sit down and they say, hey, agents are saying this or agents are saying that, and we talk about it, we discuss it, we come up with the solution, and then that meeting then is like their opportunity to go to their teams and start doing the same thing and say, hey, here's the information we got from the higher headquarters, and disseminating all the information to their leaders, and then so on forth from their leaders down and all the way down. So it should trickle all the way down to every single agent. And so the feedback mechanism we have in place to know that it is or is not happening is that we have group chats, okay, with every single agent on there for them to come in and ask questions. And so when we go over information on a Monday about a specific carrier or product that's coming out, or their rates raising or whatever for something, and then I see agents in our group chat asking questions about it 2 days later, that means that agent, I can track that agent and what team they're on, and I can say that agent isn't getting the information. So there is a breakdown in communication, and I can work up from there to find out where the breakdown was of the specific leader or manager.
Yeah, because you guys, your hierarchy is very strict, right?
Yes. So that's how I can do that. In terms of having feedback mechanisms where people can come and feel like they want to talk to me or talk to somebody, Chris Curry, myself, Spencer Long, we're all very open to talking to any agent. We have all of our information readily available for them to contact anytime. And any agent can tell you that when they reach out to me, I talk to them. If I don't answer right away, then I call them back right away if I'm on the phone, and I text them and say, hey, I'll call you right back, and I do. And then I usually sit down and I hear their problem and I give them the solution. It's either, hey, that's simple, here's the solution, this is what you do, or hey, the person that can actually answer this best is this person. Let me link you up with them, make sure that they get in contact with you. And then I follow them off. Or if they have a problem and I'm saying, and I listen to it, but I always make myself very open for any agent within an EV1 that needs assistance or wants to be heard. So,
yeah, one of the techniques I like the best, and you can't really use it so much in your business because it's not that kind of business, because it's all sales and kind of people are, managers unto themselves and kind of run their own thing a lot of the times. But with like your more traditional business model, where it's like, you have your boss and certain sections, right, that are performing certain tasks, right? Mm-hmm. Let's take one of my a doctor's office, right? Uh-huh. So they have like their front office, they have their patient coordinator, they have their nurses and medical staff, right? And then they have their office managers in charge of certain things, and then the doctor, right, the practitioner. I like to say, okay, like with the people typically do performance reviews, right, where they're just about performing, like how what's your performance based off your duty description and your job title, right, and your jobs. So I think that's half of what should be done during a performance review. It should also be a cultural performance, like how well are you adhering to and behaving in the way and modeling the cultural document that we have that we put out at the very beginning of the formation of our company, right? Like, so how are you exemplifying those behaviors, right? And so if a manager was to do a performance review with their employees like that, that is a way they can also get a feedback mechanism, which is, hey, how are you doing personally, right? Good things, bad things, what have you. How is your team doing? Like your team. So if you had all these teams of teams, right? You had your patient care coordination team, you have your marketing team, your sales team, whatever. It's like, well, how's your core team doing? Give us and like behaving culturally. Like, how are they behaving culturally? So then if they're like, man, like we say that we're supposed to have fun at work, but no one has fun. They just come here, they just clock in and clock out. Or we say we're supposed to be, obsessed with responsiveness, but people, blow things off. They blow people off. They blow off customers all the time. So the cultural document says that we're supposed to do this, but the climate, from what you're hearing from this review, is saying otherwise with this specific team. And then you can even go out another echelon and say, well, how are we doing company wide, right? And they can be like, hey, I see favoritism. Like you always, Doctor so and so always spends more time with the nurses than they do with the patient care coordination team, and so we don't get enough love over here, right? And so and they always are getting all the raises, and they're getting all of this, and you know what I mean. So there's that sense of favoritism, which could also drive a rift, and that there could be you could identify that there's no cultural behavior that addresses that specific thing. So now you have to be like, ooh, we got to update our cultural document. We got to update that. It's a living document. We got to keep that. We got to keep that thing rolling so that we can bring down the psychological fear in the organization. And then the last one, which a lot of people miss, right? And I never miss an opportunity to get feedback for yourself, and then turn the table on them and say, hey, what feedback do you have for me as a leader? Like, what can I do better? Where am I failing? Because you have one set of eyes as a leader looking at everyone. So you have a perception, but you have the multitude looking at you. And so you're always on stage, so to speak. And so they'll let you know where you're not performing or where your blind spots are, especially if that trust is there and they know that they can speak to you, like you said, candidly without repercussion. I don't think it would work in our fan mail's request in that organization, just given how they addressed his concern afterwards. But that's just something to think about. And that's something that's hard to get to, and it takes a lot of time and trust and energy to put into that. And quite honestly, it takes a really good interpersonal technique to talk to somebody like that. Because a lot of the times, when you were younger, let's say when you were a young, dumb second lieutenant, when you got counseled 9 times out of 9, you were always defensive. And you're like, man, I'm getting just blasted here. And it wasn't like productive, right?
Because all my counselings were awesome, bro. Shut
up. I never got them. I never got any, but the ones that I rarely got them, but the ones that I did get were very lackluster. They were garbage. And so it's just like we got to do better. And so me, I was like, man, I have to do better, because I can't have my soldiers get that kind of crap counseling that I received coming up. So that's the technique that I kind of made for myself, and incorporated that in how I counseled soldiers and officers and what have you. And I'll tell you, it's game changing when their mind clicks that, like, oh, I can get feedback and not get in trouble. I can talk to my boss like, hey, you suck at this, and when you said this, it made me feel this way. And you're like, oh, thank you for identifying that, because I could have done that with somebody else and not even known, and so I got to fix my behavior. So it was when that clicked in my brain. I wish it would have clicked in my brain when I was a lot younger, but when that clicked in my brain, the entire environment of how I perceived the world changed. It was a glorious thing. Which goes to this, Greg, because that helps with performance. And his next thing was on performance, and I think you're going to get a kick out of this one. So he says this. He says, the people who always get promoted to be like the management are always the highest performers become the managers. The high performers become the managers. And he's like, and they're really good at their jobs, but they suck at managing and they suck at leading a lot of the times, because while they're good at performance and production, if you will, in sales, let's say that, they're really good at producing, but they're not good at leading.
Yeah.
So hey,
what got you here won't get you there, baby bird. It's just not the same. It's not the same. That is something that is seen quite a bit. I would say 90% of people that are building some kind of agency, and this is in any IMO, not just here. This is like multiple companies. It's just somebody that's a high performer, that's a high salesperson, and knows the system very well and can manipulate it to their benefit, and they're good. And they'd be good no matter where they went to. But people are like, oh, I want to be with you because you sell well. You're a winner. I want to be on your team. But they can't train. They can't take care of people. They can't influence people because it's a different mindset. It's not the same thing. You're not high performing star of the spotlight anymore. You are in the shadows and you're helping other people be in the spotlight. And your job is to take care of them so that they can be high performers. And it changes everything. And it has to be a care. It really is a difference in like care and concern, being selfish versus selfless. No offense to most high performers are selfish in nature. It's all about them, how good they can do, focus on themselves, bettering themselves, mastering their craft, etc. And it's all individual sales. But then when you try to take it and emulate that outwards, it's hard because you can't be selfish. It's all about somebody else and them going at the pace that they're used to. And so that's definitely a nut to crack. When it comes to this level of leadership, this is something that has to be practiced and honed. And honestly, I feel like the easiest way to do it is just to realize that, like I'm just going to compare this to the sales process. Okay, if I'm sitting with clients, if I'm forcing sales, okay, if I'm like trying to get the sale for me, I'm not going to get the sales much. I'll get the sale sometimes because I'm pretty good at speaking and I know the products and I'm good at influencing people, but I'm not going to get the sales much as if I came in with an open heart and the contrite spirit, and I want to take care of this person and I want to listen to them and hear their story and understand them in order to solve a problem for them and put them in the best position possible, not for me, but for them. You sell like that, you're going to sell at a much higher level. And you're going to change, and you're going to influence more people and change lives, and that's literally transitioning from a leader that listens, does it for them, not for yourself, and I think that's the missing link a lot of times. People will be like they want to be managers or leaders because they feel if they build this big team, they can stop selling, they can go ahead and get out of the field, they can go ahead and make all this money off of somebody else. It's all about them. It's not about, this person's got some talent and I can help them to make a lot of money. I'm going to make money in the process anyways. I don't worry about that because I can make my own money, period, regardless, and stop. But this person right here, I can change their life. And taking the care and concern. And it's literally the same scenario of forcing the sale versus trying to be empathetic, an empathetic sale. And when you do leadership like that, you're gonna have a lot more people that will succeed because you care for them. So,
well, you hit something on the head that I want to emphasize, which is you talked about like, hey, I see potential in this person. It's the name of my company, for crying out loud. You mentioned potential. Everything I do is about potential, right? Leaders identify and can fulfill potential in other people and help them realize their own potential and then help them fulfill their potential once they realize like, oh my gosh, I do have all this potential that's unrealized. And now my eyes are open and I can see this vision for myself, right? And that's what a leader does. They help paint that picture for that person. Like, hey, I see something in you that you don't see in yourself currently.
yeah.
And you help open their eyes to that possibility. Like you are more than what you currently are right now. Like this current state of where you are is awesome. But we can get you over here to this state, which is still you. It's just a better you, right? And so leaders identify and are able to, I want to say manage, but they manage potential, right? Whereas managers are more so looking for production. They care about the numbers. And so the people you're talking about, which are like, oh, I just care about getting all these people underneath me so I can get out of the field and I can make tons of money off of these other people. That's management. They're just being managers. They're just, oh, I'm going to manage all this production underneath me, and as long as they're producing, I'm happy, right? I don't really care if they're fulfilling their potential. Like if this is where this person wants to be for the rest of their life, like do they want to be in sales for the rest of their life or do they want to be over there?
Yeah.
And can this be can I identify that? And this be a stepping stone over there? Mm-hmm. Maybe this person You know, I have them in sales right now, but they're probably better on a management team or an administrative team, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I need them out of the field and over there because that's a better fit for their potential. They can grow into that role, right? And so I think that's a huge thing to identify is that potential piece. And I think another thing you said about you're not in the spotlight anymore, right? When you're a leader, like it's not about you, it's about your people. It's like shine the spotlight on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't for your own glory. Like the glory is theirs. Like give it to them. Like it's awesome and you should relish in that. Like you should love that. And if you're not addicted to that, right? I remember my favorite moments I can say my favorite moment so far in my career, besides coming home from war, and bringing all my soldiers home alive. Besides that, like a potential thing, like a leadership thing, was I had a lieutenant who was very down on herself. And I was like, you have so much potential. It's not even funny because English was her second language. She's from Colombia, but she just had so many skills and she had charisma. She cared about her soldiers. She was phenomenal. And I was just like, you know what? I see something in you. She was a lieutenant at the time. I was like, I see something in you, LT, that you don't see in yourself. I'm like, but you're gonna win the brigade staff officer of the year award. She's like, no, I'm not. I can't do that. I can barely. She's like, I can't even brief. I can't even get up in front of people and talk. Like, I'm like, we're gonna get you there. And sure enough, it was painful. There were a lot of tears shed. There was a lot of doubts that she had. And every time she came up to a doubt, we crushed it. We doubted her doubts. And she won Brigade Staff Officer of the Year. And I was probably the proudest big brother or dad or whatever moment I had in the military. It was, I don't talk about my military experience often here, but this is so relevant that I'm like, man, that was awesome. Like that trumped any piece of flair that I have on my uniform, like evaporated at that moment. It didn't mean anything because that was so special. Like, I'm like, oh man, look what she did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Look, and then the tiny part that I played and just having her realize that was with joy, was just overcome with joy. It was awesome. I loved it. Now she's off being a company commander somewhere, taking over the world. I don't. So, but yeah. So there's also the thing about the spotlight thing, where it's like, that like a symphony, right? And I've said this multiple times. I think you've even said this before too on these. Is that it's going from being that first chair soloist that's rocking it on the violin and the spotlight's on you and you're like, oh, look how awesome of a musician that person is, and all the while the conductor's back is to the audience. He's not facing the audience, he's facing all his folks, trying to get the most out of everybody so they make sweet music, right? He understands how they should sound. He understands like, hey, that person can play a little better than what they're currently playing. I'm going to get more out of them. We're going to practice a little more with that person. This person is going too hard. I need to tone them down a little bit so that when they come together as a team, they harmonize, right? They sound good, right? And so I think that shift in your brain, and that's actually a good book. Let me look at my Leader Shift
by John Maxwell. It is a good book.
Fabulous book that talks about all this. But you go from being a first chair to being the conductor. That's really the shift in the brain that people should take. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, I got like a little cough or a cold coming down.
Oh, no, it's all right.
The weather's changed. The weather's changed here.
Yeah, the weather's actually changing here. Also, starting to get a little chilly at night, a little brisk in the morning. I like it. So, I think I mean we hit both those topics pretty well. If everyone ever, and this just goes without saying, but if you ever have any further on questions, or if you want us to dig in more, if you feel like you didn't get enough information from us answering a email question while airing, hey, feel free to reach out to either Mitch or myself on Instagram or Facebook, and ask further follow-on questions, and we can talk about it on air. So. Mitch, are we going to go another 2 weeks before we get to see you again, or what? Is it going to?
I hope not. Well, next week I'm in Romania, so we'll see. I'll be in Romania doing.
You get a laptop, right?
Romanian things. Of course, I have a laptop.
You got a laptop. You got a webcam, right?
Yeah, I do. Some
Yeah,
guy got me one.
so you're gonna get Wi-Fi in your hotel while you're there, right?
A good friend of mine got me one. I'll be staying in the Marriott in Bucharest. So
So
yeah,
yeah, you'll have Wi-Fi. Okay, so you'll be able to get on record. Just making sure.
you are relentless.
So, um, Mitch, if anybody wanted to follow you or learn more about you or reach out to you to do some reader mails, how could they do that?
The best one is that Mitch IG at Fifth Dimension Potential. That's fifth underscore potential underscore potential.
You
So,
just said fifth underscore potential underscore potential.
oh goodness,
He means
fifth.
dimension underscore potential.
It's getting late, bro. It's getting late.
He
It's
is in
getting
Italy right
dark.
now. So
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for the correction on my own handle.
yeah, no worries, man. That's what I'm here for. Thank you so much for coming on board, having a nice leadership huddle. We want to do this every single week. Obviously, we're kind of at the mercy of Mitch's schedule because he's always traveling around Europe. He does big things with the military still. So, but he lends his knowledge and his experience to all of us, all of you, the listeners, in order for you to learn, grow, and expand your leadership abilities. If you're watching this on YouTube, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, like the video. If you got anything out of it, if you even were amused for a moment, you made you chuckle, you got a nugget of knowledge out of it, doesn't matter. But if it gave you value, then do me a favor. Here's the fee. Share this with somebody else that can get value out of it. Okay. As you see, I got my hashtag full kimono t-shirt on. Okay. They'll get this from the ADV1 store. So go to advantage1brokers.com to the account. You can get your ADV1 swag. You got t-shirts, hoodies, polos, name tags. We even got fanny packs, bro. Can you believe that? We got ADV. we got it all. So go there, go get some ADV1 swag so that you can wear around the house and go full kimono whenever you want. And as always,